Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Sanctuary, an Ark Nova game.
Sanctuary is a 1 to 5 player game designed by Mathias Wigge, and it's published by Capstone games.
Let's go to the table and let's learn how to play. As always, you'll begin by setting up. Place a display board in the middle of the table. Shuffle all the tiles face down and stack them in piles next to the display board. Draw 6 random tiles and place them face up on the display board. Set aside the conservation markers, pouch markers, and end of game markers next to the display board. Next, you'll place the conservation board next to your display board. Shuffle the 10 conservation objectives face down, then reveal 5 at random and place them on the conservation board. Order does not matter, but for simplicity, you can place objectives with continents together and objectives with animal icons together. Now onto player setup. Each player will receive 1 zoo map. You can use either side, but make sure everyone is using the same side. For your first game, use side 1. Next, you'll take 4 different action cards and turn them all to side 1. Randomly determine the first player. The starting player places their project's action card in the leftmost slot under their zoo map. The next player in clockwise order places their project's action card 1 slot further to the right, and so on, so the arrows point to values 2, 3, and 4. In a 5-player game, the last 2 players will place their project's action card in the same slot. After placing this action card, place the other 3 action cards randomly in the remaining slots. Next, you'll choose a color and take the 4 upgrade markers and 4 conservation achievement markers of that color, placing them next to your zoo map. Finally, you'll place a tile holder in front of you to store any tiles you acquire throughout the game. You do not start with any tiles. You're now ready to play. In Sanctuary, you'll build and manage a modern zoo by adding animals, buildings, and projects from 135 unique tiles. You'll use 4 action cards to guide your turns, with the strength of each action depending on its position under your zoo map. You'll keep placing tiles until the game ends when someone supports 4 conservation objectives, completely fills their zoo, or the tile supply runs out. At this point, the player with the most points wins. Now this game is played in turns. On your turn, there are 2 things you always do. First, you'll take 1 tile from the display, and then you'll perform 1 action with one of your action cards. You'll then have other actions available to you, and at the end of your turn, there's some administration to take care of. Let's dive into the specifics. Taking a tile. You'll take 1 tile from the display into your hand. The white arrow of your project's action card points to a maximum position from which you may take the tile. For example, if the arrow points to a 3, you're free to take any of these tiles. Now that's the first step. You will not move your project's action card after taking a tile. Next, you'll perform 1 action with one of your action cards. You'll choose one of your action cards and pull it a bit downward in its slot. Then you'll perform one of the 2 actions listed, either gaining tiles or using the current strength to play tiles. Let's go over gaining tiles action first. Action cards will either instruct you to draw 2 tiles from the pile, which you'll do by placing them into your hand, or take any 1 tile from the display. The position of this tile does not matter. Once you upgrade the project's action tile, if gaining tiles, you'll take 2 tiles from the display instead. Now instead of gaining tiles from these action cards, you can play tiles from your hand. When you use an action card to play a tile from your hand, the strength of the action must meet or exceed the requirements shown on the tile. Animals and projects will each have a level. Your action strength must be at least that number in order to utilize the action card and place the tile. Now you may have noticed the building tiles. We'll mention these in the next step. Now how do you place tiles? You'll choose an action card you wish to utilize that corresponds to the tile that you wish to place. The project's action card grants you the ability to play project tiles, while the other action cards will grant you the ability to play animal tiles matching the habitat on the action tile. The undefined habitat will correspond to specific tiles in the game. Now again, you'll check if the strength requirement is met, and then proceed to place the corresponding tile onto your board. When placing tiles, you can place the tile face up on any empty space on your zoo map that is adjacent to either your entrance or a tile you've already placed. All tiles must be placed upright so that the icons are on top and the name is at the bottom. You cannot rotate tiles. Now if a tile has arrows on 1 or more edges, these arrows must point to open areas. You'll have open areas printed on your zoo map, or you can create them by placing tiles from your hand face down into the corresponding spaces. You may never place a tile so that the arrow points off the edge of the map or at an already placed face-up tile. Additionally, open area tiles will score 1 point each at the end of the game. If you cover up a space with a placement bonus, you'll gain that bonus immediately. This includes placing open area tiles. You can find the explanation of these on the back of your reference tile. Now that's the general idea for placing tiles. Now let's give you a few examples of tiles with unique rules and placement conditions that you'll see in the game. Some animals come in pairs. If you use an action card to place an animal next to an animal with the same name, you immediately receive 1 conservation marker. We'll explain what these do in a moment. If you play a projectile with which you release an animal into the wild, you'll place a projectile on an animal tile in your zoo that has the corresponding icon. The animal and icons covered are no longer considered to be in your zoo. You'll immediately gain 2 or 3 conservation markers depending on the size of the animal. Some tiles will also refer to the river in your zoo map. The 3 spaces on the left and right edges of your board are considered by the river. Finally, you'll check if your tile has an immediate ability or any ongoing effects. Additionally, ongoing effects trigger right away if the tile itself meets the condition. Here's an example. Most abilities are fairly self-explanatory, but feel free to reference the glossary if any questions come up throughout the game. Now you'll notice the higher the strength of the tile, the better the tiles typically are. So how do you get action cards to certain strengths? Well, once you've completed your action, you'll remove the corresponding action card from its slot. You'll move the action cards left of the new gap rightward to close the gap and place the used action card in its leftmost slot. If you use the leftmost action card, you will not move any cards. Now that's the overview of the 2 actions you will always do on your turn. Choose a tile from the display and complete an action. Let's go over the actions you'll possibly take. First, play 1 building. If you have a blue building tile in your hand and you meet its placement condition, you may place it in your zoo map. The placement rules are the same as with animals and projects. The space must be empty and adjacent to your entrance or an existing tile, and you cannot rotate it. Some buildings require being next to certain icons or other features. If placing the building triggers placement bonuses or tile effects, resolve them in any order you choose. Here are a few examples. Now remember, you can only play 1 building per turn. The next action you can possibly take is supporting 1 conservation objective. You can use one of your conservation achievement markers to support a conservation objective on the conservation board. To do this, you must have the minimum number of the matching icons in your zoo shown on the marker you want to place. You may also return conservation markers from your supply to temporarily increase your icon count, 1 per returned marker. But you must still have at least 1 matching icon in your zoo. Once you meet the requirement, place your unused achievement marker face down on the matching objective in your player color. Each objective can only be claimed once per player. Last, we have upgrade action cards. If you've met a condition for 1 or more of your 4 upgrade markers, you may flip an action card of your choice from side 1 to side 2. An upgraded action card is stronger. Its numbers for strength are higher, and it may allow you to do more than a single action, such as playing 2 animals instead of 1. When you upgrade, turn the used upgrade marker face down to show that it has been spent. You cannot use that marker again. Now at the end of your turn, you'll do some administration. First, you'll check your hand limit. You may not have more than 6 tiles in hand at the end of your turn. If you have more, discard down to 6. Second, replenish the display. Slide any remaining tiles to fill empty numbered positions, then draw new tiles from the pile to fill the display back to 6 tiles. And finally, you'll check for game end. If at least one of the 3 endgame conditions are met, the game end will trigger. Now the game ends when any of these happen. 1. You have supported 4 conservation objectives. All 4 of your achievement markers are now on the conservation board. 2. You have completely filled your zoo map. There's no empty spaces remaining. Or 3. The face down tile pile is empty. If at the end of your turn you've met either of the first 2 conditions, you'll take the 10-point end of game marker. Then everyone else gets 1 more turn, excluding you. After that, final scoring will begin. If the pile of face down tiles is empty after you have triggered the end of the game, shuffle the discarded tiles to form a new pile to draw from. Additionally, if you also meet a game end condition on your last turn, either supporting 4 conservation objectives or filling your zoo map after someone has triggered the end of the game, you'll take the 5-point end of game marker. Now, if the face-down tile pile is emptied before either of the first two game end conditions are met, the game ends immediately after your turn. Directly proceed to final scoring. Let's score! You'll first add up points on the tiles in your zoo. Some have a fixed value, while others have value dependent on how many icons of a specific type you have adjacent to the tile or anywhere in your zoo. First, you'll count up the points for your animals, then buildings, then projects, and lastly, the open areas. You'll then add points from the conservation achievement markers on your conservation board. You'll receive 2 points for each pouch marker and each remaining conservation marker in your possession. And finally, points for the end of game markers if you've collected one. You'll tally the scores and the player with the most points wins. If tied, the tied player with the most animals in their zoo wins. If still tied, you share the victory. Now, are you playing for the first time and hoping for a shorter first game? During setup, return the 4x conservation achievement marker to the box. One of the game end triggers now is when 3 conservation achievement markers are placed instead of 4.
And that's Sanctuary, an Ark Nova game.
Do you have any questions? Leave them in the comments down below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
And if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button if you're new here, because we love talking and teaching board games.
And hit that little bell, because then you know when the next video comes out and we can all partake in the joys of board gaming. Now, for our question of the day, if you had to build one sanctuary for only one animal to preserve that animal, what would it be?
Otters.
Well, obviously for you it would be otters. And there's otters in this game as well, which is exciting. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you
in the next one. Bye!